Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry, and welcome to the IGDA LocSIG YouTube channel. Sorry for this bad start. And welcome to another AMA with localization professionals. So if you are new here, welcome. I'm Aurélie, an English to French translator and also a LocSIG co-chair, And today with me is my co-chair, Julia, and a very special guest, Marc, director at From the Void. So Julia, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm so sorry. Am I back?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, sorry. I was just writing it to the chat. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Julia. Welcome. We're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, we're very excited to have Marc here today, but I'm quickly introducing myself. My name is Julia. I'm the current co-chair of the IGDA Localization SIG. I'm a freelance Japanese and English to German translator for manga, anime, and also obviously games. And yeah, so I'm just throwing the ball to Marc to introduce himself, please, to us. Like, we know him already. A lot of our community members know him, but, you know, do you have something to add here, please?
Hello, I'm Marc. I take care of Indy, who does all the work.
Okay.
Sounds amazing. I mean,
I know, Jessica, Indy isn't here yet, but he'll probably show up at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, he's basically behind the scenes, like pulling all the strings. Yeah. If somebody's not familiar with Indy, he was also featured on the thumbnail for this live. So, yeah. You know, you can put one and one together.
He's the actual mastermind behind everything.
Exactly.
He is.
We love to hear it. Awesome.
Okay, so let's get started. First question.
Let's get into it. Yes. So I think your introduction fell a little short right now, Marc, but that's okay because we're going to go right into it. So you're also the director and localization director of From the Void, which is your personal localization like agency or company, whatever you want to call it, that you built from the ground up. And today we're here to talk mostly about your journey, how you got into localization, what brought you into actually, you know, opening the doors of a little agency yourself, and also why you're so loud in the localization space. We're definitely going to talk about that too. So I think we're going to start with the basics. Like, how did you get into localization? What was your like inspiration or biggest inspiration to even like follow that path?
Well, that happened actually rather accidentally. So I played games my whole life, you know, classic story, played games as a kid, then growing up, passionate about them, wanted to work in video games naturally as a result of that. At first, I thought I'd achieve that through art because I've always had a bit of a creative mind, and I had a great arts teacher in middle school that encouraged me to follow that path. So after high school, I went to an art school, which was a complete failure. I failed at that in the first year. And after that, I didn't really know what to do. So I thought, hey, I speak English well. I can study English at university, and that will be easy, which it was easy.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. But during my bachelor's in English studies, we naturally did some translation, and I ended up quite liking that, enjoying translation. And actually, fun fact, I really enjoyed translating from French into English, maybe even more than the other way around, which is weird and unnatural, but that's just how I roll. And so, so while I was doing my bachelor and realizing that I enjoyed translation, I heard that my university had a partnership with a university in Melbourne, in Australia, for a master's in translation. So I thought, hey, I'm liking translation and could spend a year in Australia. That sounds cool. So I did that. And at that point, I was basically locked into a path to study and work in translation. And since I hadn't given up on my dream of working in games, that naturally led to localization. So yeah, I did a year of my master's in Melbourne, and then I did a semester back in France, and then I did a semester as an intern at a localization agency that shall not be named, but that everyone knows, and that one day will burn in hell. But
okay, well, we can go into detail some other time, maybe, or rather privately in DMs. Who knows?
I was told I can't insult anyone directly live on YouTube, so
exactly. A reminder to the chat as well: please do not engage in hateful comments and agency bashing of any kind. And I think we're fine. Thank you, Marc, for holding it together. We appreciate it.
I might sleep at some point during the stream, but for now.
Well, Indy's here to wake you up, right? He's gonna take over if you're sleeping, so it's all gonna be okay. We're good.
Okay.
Nice. That's so cool. So you have like a really professional translation background as well, and
in theory, yeah.
I mean, it would only be theoretical usually, right? I mean, there's not a lot of
practical
stuff you do in uni.
I've never been a very good student.
Interesting.
Not in terms of grades, except at art school, that was terrible. But in high school, at university, I always did well in terms of, I always managed to get good grades, but I couldn't get any work done. So basically went through university doing next to nothing. And
I'm sure something stuck in your head.
Well, a couple of things here and there, but what I learned about translation and localization more specifically, I really learned during my internship. As terrible as the company that I did the internship at was, I did learn a lot of things. And then, once I started my freelance career, that's, where I continued to learn a lot. So
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for going further into this topic. I'm just really interested too. How long have you been a freelancer until the point you decided to open up from the void?
So I started freelancing late 2017, and I opened from the void in April 2020. I had the idea somewhat around late 2019, so that gives you an idea more or less.
Okay.
So not very long. It happened fairly fast because I get bored very quickly.
Okay, so you basically use that opening your own or furthering your business to not get bored in your career.
Yeah. Well,
interesting.
At the time, a friend of mine told me that I have professional ADHD because I always need to do different stuff, do more things, expand, quickly and all that.
Right.
Turns out, years later, it turned out that I just have regular ADHD. But at the time, we didn't know that.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a way to keep me interested in what I'm doing. Not that I love translating. I love translating games specifically, but I need to not be doing exactly the same thing every hour of every day. So something like managing a localization studio is perfect for that because there's so much different stuff to do all the time. So that keeps me.
Totally.
We have a question from the chat. We have a question from the chat if you want to pick it. Because I think it's linked to freelancing. It's from Annabelle, who asks you if you had any passion project or worked on a game that you truly loved and that turned into a nightmare due to different issues.
Wow.
I wouldn't say so. Maybe if I had gotten the job on Hades 2.
There it comes. Yes.
But I could say that it didn't turn into a nightmare, but the way I started my career was with Darkest Dungeon, the first one. And that was actually the first time I worked on that. I wasn't a freelancer. I wasn't even a student yet. It was before my master's.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Darkest Dungeon one had just released on Steam.
Right.
Well, I just exited early access. And it turned out the localization was really bad, even though it was done by an agency, or maybe because it was done by an agency. And so, they were kind of out of options, and they asked for people in the community to maybe help fix the localization. So, I answered the call, and that's how I started working on Darkest Dungeon. The reason I'm mentioning it is because first of all, it was volunteer work. So it was a lot of work and hard work, and it was unpaid, which is not really to put the blame on the devs, because they had already blown the localization budget on an agency that had done a terrible job. So, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. But also, I didn't know really anything about translation and localization at that time. I wasn't working on a professional tool. I didn't have any experience, so it was complicated work. And the nightmare now is for me to look back at the Darkest Dungeon 1 translation.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's a cringe nightmare, basically.
We all know how it feels looking back.
Yeah, also because the Darkest Dungeon 1 localization is a Frankenstein's monster, because everyone and their mother worked on it, basically.
Got it.
You've got the original agency, you've got me coming in to fix stuff, but then leaving for 2 years for my studies. So in the meantime, you have other people in the community working on the content that got released. In that meantime, then I come back, I rework some of that content, but not everything. And then I work from scratch on the new DLC. So the localization is just all over the place.
All over the place. Okay. Damn. Yeah, that sounds tough.
I'm proud to have done it, and I'm glad I did it, because it was a real boost to my early career to come in as a freelancer with a game like Darkest Dungeon on my portfolio. That's huge. So I don't regret it, but it was
it's really popular still. Yeah. Got it. Does that answer your question at chat? I hope so. I think, we all know those nightmare feelings we got when we look back at our early works. But this is just how it goes. We're growing, evolving, and hopefully getting better at what we're doing every single day.
Yeah, so now we're really correcting all our mistakes on Darkest Dungeon 2, so.
Damn, amazing. The circle closes, basically.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So cool. Okay, actually, let's take that and go into something that I'm really interested in. So on Darkest Dungeon, you work with From the Void, but also solo now. Is that true?
Well, the Darkest Dungeon 1, I was alone.
Right.
And then for Darkest Dungeon 2, the devs decided to hire the whole studio for...
Right.
Yeah, well, basically, I knew that they were working on Darkest Dungeon 2 for a while, So once I had the idea for From the Void, I kind of poked them.
Of course, that's great.
When we were in contact for pickup translation for Darkest Dungeon or whatever, every time I went, I'm putting this thing together. If for Darkest Dungeon 2 you want more than French from me, I could do a bit more. And then we had a call to set up the localization for Darkest Dungeon 2, and I asked them, do you want me just for French, or do you want more? And they were like, and I was fully ready to, have to pitch them or answer some questions or, and they were just like, yeah, well, we'll give you everything if you think you can take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll take it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, and that meant a lot, actually, in terms of, seeing that they were willing to trust me like that. That we had built up such a good
You built
professional
that.
relationship
Exactly.
that they were willing to just go for it, you know.
Uh-huh,
That means a lot.
That's awesome. So, like, what changed about your like day-to-day life if you look back at being a freelancer and also now managing from the void? Because I believe you're still also like translating yourself like hands-on, right? Like it's something you still like do next to managing. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, what changed the most is I'm much more tired.
Yes.
I do translate less than before, obviously, because I just don't have as much time.
Got it.
I try to translate when I can. I translate maybe a bit more than I should, because sometimes things get a bit, tight. I'm hoping that at some point in the near future, or maybe not, I'll be able to get some help with project management so that I can free up a bit more time to do a bit more translation again.
Expanding, I hear. That's great. Yes.
Don't send your emails yet.
Yeah, oh my God, chat. Keep it down now, but keep it in mind.
Or maybe send them now to be the first in line. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, sounds great. I'm really happy that it's going so well for you. It's just, sounding like you really found what you wanted to do and needed to do in your like.
Yes, somehow. Yeah. I don't know. I'm making it up as I go along. Really, I didn't go into it with a plan.
Got it.
Which might not be something one would recommend. Maybe
I wonder.
I probably got lucky along the way. But it's worked so far.
Yeah. Yes, that's awesome.
It's promising, especially in this industry, to see that actually you can be successful. So it could be inspiring for everyone.
Yeah. If I can be successful, everyone can be successful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing. So let's bring up this question from the chat. Do you want to read it already?
Yep. Yeah, you have a question from Matthias. Still about your beginning. It says, besides knocking doors and being patient, which were the first things you did to get into video game translation industry? So you said you had the internship. Darkest Dungeon?
Darkest Dungeon, yeah. Really harassing people.
No, but I mean, you have to.
That's sort of the... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said you have to. You have to knock on doors.
Yeah, no, that's a thing. Yeah, right. Knocking on doors. Send your portfolio, your CV to everyone under the sun. And, at some point, someone's going to answer yes, and that's going to be your first job. And then you're going to put that on your portfolio. And because you have one more thing on your portfolio, a couple more people will be more willing to say yes, and you build up that way. Now, I'm saying put stuff on your portfolio, but we all know the situation with NDAs, so that's another thing. But yeah, just like there's no real shortcut or magic bullets when you're starting off. It's just sending hundreds, maybe even thousands of emails, meeting people at conventions if you can go to conventions, and that's it. Just harassing people, really.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God! No, we do not harass.
No harassment.
No.
Harassing the industry as a whole, not specific people, except Supergiant. Supergiant, you're allowed to harass when they announce a new game. That's the only rule.
Sirius was just asking favorite game that you didn't work on and why, and I answered for you. It's definitely Hades 2. I'm pretty sure I nailed that one. Because I know you really tried getting that project, as a lot of people did. And I'm actually really curious who got it in the end, because they must have made a decision yet, right? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I don't know what I should or shouldn't say, but I'm pretty sure they've settled on a team. I didn't get it for French. From the Void obviously didn't get it for,
sad life. Yes.
Yeah, that's tragic.
Honestly, 83 is definitely going to be a thing, I'm pretty sure.
I am sad that From the Void didn't get it for multilingual translation, but I am kind of relieved in a way that I didn't get it for French.
Right.
Because I don't know how I would have done it.
I see. Okay, like you mean in terms of like resources or
in terms of time management.
I
like,
see. Right.
when would I have found the time to translate all that? Like, I don't know. I would have, because there's no way I'm offered Hades 2 and I'm saying no. So I would have found a way, but I have no idea what that way would have been. So
maybe Indy could have taken over for you doing all the other stuff, and then you could have focused on. Like,
yeah, we all know he's already the one doing everything anyway. So
okay, I guess so. Let's not overwork Indy. Definitely.
Yeah.
I really want to go up into a question that we haven't really brought up yet, but I think it's one of our main topics today. Like, we had the like image of From the Void trying to build a really unique like language service provider model, and we're here to ask you today that you tell us like why and like how you want to achieve that, and what your like ethics are or ethical practices that you know established in your company.
Mm-hmm. Well, so one of the reasons I started From the Void we've already covered, basically ADHD, the need to do
you were
everything.
bored.
Yeah, I was bored. But also not wanting to have to deal with the bullshit of the industry, basically.
Right.
Looking at the agencies and their bad practices, their bad rates, their lack of crediting, their terrible workflows, and saying basically, fuck that, I'll do my own agencies with blackjack and translators. So yeah, that was basically the idea, to sort of bypass the things I didn't like and do it better. You said, did we lose Julia?
I think so. I'm sorry. Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. You said that From the Void was trying to be like a different model.
Right.
I don't know if I'd say a different.
Sorry, I didn't hear any of the response. I'm really sorry. Like, you explained everything now.
Well, too bad. You'll have to watch the replay.
I guess so. I'm gonna look at the VOD later.
No, but you said we're trying to be a different model. I don't know if I'd say that exactly, because it's the way From the Void works is not radically different from what already exists. It's more in the spirit of the thing and in the way we handle stuff. So it's the idea of having a studio that benefits from having a structure, like an agency. So having management, and that brings organization, clear decision making, and rules and processes to sort of ground the work and do things better and more efficiently and in a consistent way, but ally that with the touch and care and ethics of smaller groups and individuals. Trying to not be a new model, but sort of the best of both worlds, and for both worlds, that is for the clients, like provide what they're looking for, but also in a way that's for the translators to operate within a context that's good for them, that they actually enjoy, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. Also, like, quality of translations improves drastically if people are actually feeling good writing things.
People are happy to do it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's awesome.
It's very important.
Do you want to say anything?
Just looking at the chat, we have more questions, but it's more technical, so it's not. I'm saving them for later. Unless you want to reply, there is a question from Sondo about your strategy for LQA in translated games.
Right. Yeah. Ethical practices for LQA. Let's go. Marc?
Ethical, I don't know. The strategy for LQA, first of all, is to beg developers to actually order it. Because, it's already difficult enough to push developers and publishers to have decent budget for localization. Add on that LQA, which is typically priced hourly and can get pretty expensive if you're translating into a bunch of languages. That becomes complicated. And we often say that developers think about localization very late in the process, in the development process, and they come at it sort of not having prepared anything, kind of like me with this AMA. But
you're doing great though.
LQA is even worse. Like they come into localization without a single clue of the budget they should have, the time they should allocate to it, and they haven't even thought of LQA. So you add that on top of the thing that they already haven't prepared for at all. So often it's very complicated to just do LQA. So that's
like
the
to
first
push
thing.
Through that it's getting done.
Yeah,
you mean?
Beyond that, right now we don't have like a very dedicated setup for LQA that would involve actual LQA tools. So typically we rely on devs providing a build, ideally a build with cheats, so that we can go into the game and play and fix stuff. It's usually the people translating who do the LQA. I'm thinking about weighing the benefits and inconveniences of having a separate team do the LQA, because I think it can have benefits, but it has to be done the right way, because we've had kind of bad experiences with cases where the client would send VLQA to a different studio, and we'd get reports back that weren't really relevant, or maybe even wrong. So I think having a separate team for LQA has advantages, like freeing up time for the translation team to work on other stuff, having a different set of eyes on the translation, on its context and the technical stuff. But it would have to be done in a context where the localization and LQA teams have very strong communication, that they're very much in sync, rather than having the localization team work in isolation and then send it to a different team that has no idea what the project has been like, what the translators are going for. They go into the game completely blindly, and
well, it's very helpful if you translators who know what text you translated know what to look for as well, and where kind of it is in the game.
So I think that's why right now, I think for us right now, the best approach is to have the people translating do the LQA. But I think we could have a setup with a different team doing the LQA if we can set it up in a way where they're aware of the project and they're very much in direct, constant communication with the translation team. Yep. So that requires some further development and setup and all that. So that's not going to happen right now.
I mean, right now, maybe not, but maybe in the future, and it's something to look at too.
We'll see.
I would be really interested, it brings me to another question that you just mentioned. You have this set of translators who would be freed up with their time. I think you say in your website that you work with a hand-picked team of localizers or localization professionals, which I find always really interesting. What exactly does that mean, and how do you also find your localization professionals? How can you vouch for them in every language? How's that working?
Well, first of all, I have a fairly small team, and that's on purpose. I try to keep it small. That's why I'm not answering all your emails, everyone. I'm very sorry.
Indy will respond.
I would love to hire everyone, but no, I'm purposefully keeping the team very small. I'm basically bringing new people in when there's a need, like a specific need. I don't like recruit people just for the sake of having people on the roster, basically. The way I pick them, at the start, I don't even really remember exactly how I picked each individual. Some of them were reputation, some of them I had worked on, other projects with. So I knew, some of them from their portfolio, or, we had talked, and, different ways. And beyond that, often via recommendation from people on the team, because I know this team very well. That's the advantage of having a small team, is that I know them, I know that they work well, I know that they can be trusted. So if I tell them, hey, we need some backup for this project, can you recommend someone? I know that they are likely to recommend someone who shares their quality and can be trusted as well. So that really helps to have this flow of, people recommending, because, if I pick someone who sent me a cold email, I don't really know what I'm getting, which might be great or might be terrible. I don't really know. But if someone that I really trust, that I know does good work, can recommend someone, to me, that's perfect.
Yeah,
because
it makes sense.
it tells me that it's probably going to be good.
Yeah.
But that doesn't even happen that often, because, as I said, I'm keeping the team purposefully small, because I think that's part of what contributes to the quality of the work we do, is that it's a small team of people who I'm used to working with, who are used to working with me, and who are used to working together. So it's got this thing of, everyone knows the way it all works, everyone knows the processes, the workflows, and we're used to talking, to exchanging ideas. It's all comfortable, and that improves the quality and the efficiency as well, because we work better because we're so used to our processes.
Like a well-oiled machine, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good practice, I would say, because having the capacity to communicate with everyone is really great. You can exchange ideas between languages and everything, and everyone does their best. So good point.
I think for localization professionals, often we get like lost in the sea of like other translators or localizers, and then I don't know, people even lose their face. You don't even know who you work with anymore. You only get initials or something. And we never thought that was a good way to actually like create quality in the end of a
I think
project,
communication is extremely important. That's why every game we work on, we have a common project channel where every linguist for every language. Oh, what's that?
Sorry, I saw somebody entering the chat. Yes.
Yes.
Indy has entered the chat.
Hi. We love you.
Hello.
Hi. So cute.
What was I saying?
Here's the boss.
Sorry, I forgot everything we just talked about. Oh my god.
Well, I was saying, every game we work on, we have a project channel where every linguist for every language is and can communicate with everyone else on the team, exchange ideas, share issues they have with text, so that there can really be this whole team, the entire team, interacting together to bring out the best outcome.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love that. Also, like, most of it is based on trust. Sorry. Like, please continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I lost what I was going to say.
Indeed.
That's like, you asked about how I pick people. Apart from what I already said, of course, quality of the work and all that, but the ability to communicate and be part of the team, and really be responsive. Not necessarily responsive in the sense where, if I send you a task and you don't answer within 15 minutes, you're fired. But responsive in the sense of, being able to communicate and exchange, and
and also be open about what's going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know you encourage like the translators you work with for feedback too, like even for yourself, so you can improve. And I find that really important for
Yeah.
anybody's growth,
Well,
really.
you know,
Yeah.
I want, you know, as I said, part of, you know, the goal with From the Void is to provide clients for what they want, but also provide translators what they want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm really trying to build something that's, you know, comfortable, welcoming to translators. It's
Right.
not always a perfect work environment because you
Mhm.
have sometimes to make compromises on some projects, or you know, sometimes stuff happens, but I'm
Mhm.
trying to do things the best way possible most of
Yeah.
the time. And so yeah, I absolutely encourage, you know, feedback, especially because as well I really improvised. You know, I started from the
Mhm.
void. I had no project management experience or,
Mhm.
you know, knowledge or anything like that. I just
Mhm.
started doing
Did
it,
the
and
thing.
then yeah,
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
did one day. I just started doing the thing, and then I
Mhm.
learned
Mhm.
on the job, which is the only way I really know how to learn. You know, if I
Mhm.
had to learn project management through, I don't know, theory
Mhm. Mhm.
before starting to do it, we wouldn't be here today. I
Yeah,
wouldn't have.
probably. You might
So
still be in
Yeah.
uni. Who knows, right?
no,
Or
I don't
not.
know where I'd be, but
Yeah.
we From the Void wouldn't exist. I can't,
Mhm.
like, I can't.
But
Okay.
sometimes it's the best way to just jump in the waters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect
I mean,
transition. With I have a
Yes.
question from Alexander that is just at the right time. Well, it was
sure.
above bit before. Sorry. What were the biggest challenges at the very beginning of From the Void that might be easily overlooked? Or, in other words, what's a translation studio starter pack?
I
So
love
you
that
just
question. Yes.
like now with all your experience,
Mm.
what would be a starter pack for a translation studio?
Well, you know, one thing in favor of starting a translation studio is that it's very well. I don't, it might depend on where you create it, where you
Mhm.
establish it, but it's very cheap to create
Mhm.
because, you know, you have no offices, you have no employees, because at
Mhm.
least to start with you will work with freelancers. So basically people will
Right.
only get paid if you already have a contract with a client who's going to pay you.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's fairly cheap to start, so you can create, well, which is probably why there are so many agencies. Like
Mhm.
every other day, you get a message on LinkedIn from an agency you have never heard of in your life, who's
Yeah.
trying to recruit you for God knows what satanic ritual,
Yes.
because it's so easy to start, because you don't need many resources.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
But I would say the difficulty at the start is basically the same as the difficulty when you're starting as a freelancer, is just finding work, finding
Mhm.
clients, finding work. So weigh your options. Um, don't try to go too big right away. So limit your expenses so that
Mhm.
you can run your studio cheap at the beginning while you're looking for clients. And then when the work gets more reliable, you can start to expand and, you know, start to invest in things that cost a bit more, like, you know, a memo queue
Right.
server or an accountant, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, same difficulty really as starting as a freelancer, just find work.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Mhm.
it's the same thing. You should expect a slow start and be prepared for it. You should probably not, you know, come into the industry and right away create a studio. You should probably just work as a freelancer, and once you're somewhat comfortable, start a studio so that you can still have your, you know, freelance business that's going fairly well, and
Mhm.
on the side you start building your studio to a point where at one point it will basically take over your freelance business.
Mhm. Mhm. So, might I like add to this question because I find that personally really interesting. did you like ever run into like real problems when you basically pitch from the void to game devs or like for a project or something? Or like what is happening when game devs are approaching you about like getting a project? And then did you have issues with also like working out how everybody gets paid or like how to allocate the work or the resources that you had available or something like that? Is there anything that jumps to mind?
Not specifically. I mean, it's always sort of like allocating the resources, assigning jobs can sometimes get pretty complicated, especially because I try to always keep the team small, as I said,
Right.
which means that sometimes we run into a problem where there's too much work and the team is too small. So we have to kind of run around, try to find ways to make it work. In terms of pitching to people, I find that devs and publishers are fairly receptive to the pitch. I think it really helps if you compare a studio like From the Void to a freelancer. And we've heard that in the past from other people. I think it's a real advantage to be able to pitch a multilingual service rather than a single language, because you're providing, on top of the linguistic know-how and the quality and all that, anything that anyone could pitch, you're providing convenience because you're providing a full package. So that's really an advantage in pitching, and people are fairly receptive. Beyond that, it comes down to what you might expect. For example, budgets. When you start, giving the rates, and that's where, it starts to find some friction. But some people, some developers or publishers don't have the resources for the service we provide, and that's okay.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, you're doing a really great job so far, and I'm really like curious where From the Void is going in the future.
I am
And
too.
yeah, we're gonna look back to this video like years from now, and then
Yeah, we have a question about if you use any tools among maybe those we already know, like Plunet, Protemos, and so on, or if you use tools that we don't maybe know or don't use in project management yet.
Well, MemoQ for starters,
Obviously.
but that doesn't need to be said. We are gonna start using Plunet very soon. It's in the process of launching right now. It took me a long time. I started setting up Plunet months ago, but because I'm always very busy and also very tired, it took me a long time to finish setting it up, but we're going to start using Plunet very soon, which I'm kind of excited about. Beyond that, a lot of Excel sheets.
Okay.
sorry, I was gone. My internet is really bad, and I don't know why. I'm really sorry, everybody.
You'll have to watch the replay for that question as well.
Yeah, I know, I hate it, but it's okay. I'm gonna watch this endlessly until Indy shows up again. It's okay.
Okay, and we have another question.
He's right here.
Bring him in.
He's shy.
Bring Indy.
Look at him.
Oh my god, he's so cute. I love Indy so much.
He's too shy, just like you.
Yeah. He left.
Oh. Okay.
He'll be back. He'll be back.
Yeah. Do you have food? That's important to have food.
I have an apple, but I don't think he'd like that.
No. We have another question in the chat. It's more about, you were talking before about pitching. So more about pitching GameLog services. Sandra is asking about pitching the developer or the publisher.
Both.
Depends on the context.
What's the context, please? Well, I mean, publisher is probably the go-to because they're usually the ones handling outsourcing for these sorts of services, such as localization. So publisher is the go-to, but also pitch to the devs. It can't hurt. right? Sometimes the publisher will be the one picking you up, but sometimes you'll go to the devs and they like your pitch and they will talk to you, talk about you to their publisher, and that's how you get in. Or sometimes, it's, you don't know, but it's the devs who are handling localization and the publishers are just funding it or, helping manage it, but it's actually the devs deciding. So you can't really know how it's going to go. So the answer is pitch to both.
Yeah. Interesting. And with that, how do you approach them? You talk to them on Twitter, for example, which
say hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good point.
Hi, it's me. I do translation.
I'm very bad at pitching. I need to hire a salesperson. I need to go the big agency that I can't name route and have like 200 salespeople on the GDC floor, which is not a joke. They legitimately
Did you see them? Okay.
I saw a bunch of them, and I heard from a bunch of different people that this agency actually had hundreds of salespeople on the GDC floor. I don't even know what these people do. That's just insane.
Well, you're never gonna have 200 salespeople on the floor, I guess, and you probably also don't want to have them.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you would lose.
I'm bad at pitching, and I'm very socially anxious. So I'm bad at approaching people. So I don't know if I'm the best to give out advice on that front. I just send a lot of emails. I just try to.
Emails work for social anxiety as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to foster a good public image and try to get our work out there, so that instead of having to reach out to people, we can get more and more people actually reaching out to us, which would be the dream, right? That you don't actually have to pitch, people come to you. That's the ultimate goal, right? So, and that's why I think some piece of advice that I would have for anyone starting a studio or even starting freelance is to have a public presence. You can have a very successful career, and I'm sorry, Julia, you're gonna have to watch the replay for that one as well. You can have a very successful career basically in the shadows, but if you have a good, consistent public presence, it will help a lot in boosting your career. It can really propel you. There are jobs and opportunities that I've had that you can trace back all the way to someone just noticing me on Twitter. So I think it's a pretty big piece of advice to think about fostering a certain public presence. Obviously, if you can do it, if you're comfortable with doing it, social media isn't for everyone. I personally think social media is going to destroy humanity, but in the meantime, it's a very useful tool for business and networking.
It's extremely useful.
Yeah, it is.
We'll keep using it until we destroy ourselves with it, basically.
Wow. There's also good things that come from social media.
It can,
like my career, for example.
I just wanted to bring my line. I'm sorry, before I'm gone again. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, it's perfect. No. Sorry. You have another question about, you said, so you have a small company, and Matthias is asking, what are the essential departments you have, like HR, community management, finances, your everything, almost?
Cat is the most essential department.
Yes.
No, well, I am everything. I do have an accountant who's not in-house. It's an accounting service that handles that stuff. That I didn't have when I created From the Void. As I explained earlier, I tried at the beginning to keep expenses as low as possible. So I didn't hire an accountant. And then we you've got to the end of the year and you've got a lot of, paperwork to do around accounting at the end of the year. And I thought, you know what, if I try to do this myself, I might just end up in prison. So at that point, I hired an accounting service. But apart from that, I am everything for now. But that will probably change at some point, or little by little. You mentioned like which are the essential community. I think community management is an interesting one. It's very secondary. It's not something you should like do right away because it costs. Oh, we've lost Julia.
Yeah, she will be back, I hope.
Okay. Community management costs money, and it's not an essential way to provide, the service you're providing, right? It doesn't help directly with localization, but it can help with what I mentioned before, which is fostering the image and having people talk about you and, having a bigger presence. So community management is an interesting thing to look into. You just have to have the resources for it to be relevant. HR is important. It should get set up at some point.
Yeah, probably. But for now, yeah, like you said, you do everything. And I think the accountant step is rather important. I would say it depends on your business status as well, because you had to create something very specific in France that is like a real company compared to what a freelancer has.
From the Void is an actual registered business in France. It's a company, contrary to a freelancer who doesn't have, at least in France, freelancers don't have less legal obligations around accounting and all that, which makes it very easy to navigate things. But the second you're actually an entity, a legal entity, a company, it becomes much more complicated, and it becomes like if you don't know about accounting, it becomes really like crucial to have an accountant.
Yeah, I think it's best and safest to have an accountant at this point. So yeah. Your least favorite and your favorite kind of work in your company.
in my company, in what sense?
Yeah, in your company. At least in yours. Maybe in other company, maybe you'd like. But what would be your least favorite and your favorite kind of work?
Like type of game?
Serious ask between, for example,
serious?
PM. Yeah, PM or translator, sorry.
Oh, do I prefer management or translation?
For example, accounting, maybe.
Nope. Paperwork. I love to do paper. I love to sign documents. No, it depends on what time of day you ask me. So sometimes I like both. I like managing and I like translating. So, and as I said, I get bored if I do the same thing all the time. So I like to switch. So, one day I might translate a lot and you'll ask me and I say, oh my God, I want to do some management. I can't bear to look at this translation project anymore. And another day you might ask me and I'll be like, oh, I've done so much management today. I haven't had time to translate. Please give me something to translate. So it depends. I like both sides.
Okay. So he actually meant games also.
He meant genres of games. I don't do sports.
Okay.
I hate sports.
Too much terminology.
Games. Yeah, no, I find it boring. I don't know. I've never, and the terminology. I don't know a lot about sports, so it's a nightmare to translate because I have to look everything up. So no.
And you have to understand.
You have to understand what's going on. Like the baseball game. What the hell is going on in a baseball game? I don't know.
Kill me.
Favorite genres? I don't know if I have a favorite genre to translate. I think it more comes down to the writing and the themes and what the content that's actually in the game rather than the genre, because we deal with. Hello, Julia. Hey. Hello.
Back from the void. Can you hear me? I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, I'm so thankful for Orderly keeping this going. Thank you.
No problem. What was I saying?
About the genre you like or don't.
Oh yeah, we deal with text, so the genre really doesn't, like, some of the text will be the same depending if it's an FPS or a third-person shooter or an adventure game. Sometimes, like, the text won't be that different. So in terms of that distinction, it really depends more on the type of text, the tone, the way it's written, the characters, that sort of stuff. Of course, because I'm a translator, I really enjoy narrative games with a lot of focus on writing, on characters and stuff like that. I like to translate dialogues. I like games with puns and stuff like that, because I enjoy, even though it's time consuming, I enjoy like translating jokes and stuff like that. I think it's very fun and very rewarding.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
It's the most fun for me too as a translator to translate jokes.
Or achievements. My favorite genre is achievements.
Okay.
Because you like my thing with achievements, unless instructed otherwise by the devs, is you can do whatever you want. Achievements is this area that's outside the game, where it's meta text that's not part of the actual game experience, so you can be a bit more free and go wild with the jokes, puns, references, and stuff like that, and that's always very fun.
Yep. Best when you know what happens.
Sorry.
What did you say, Julie?
You love dark games, right? Like
the darkest.
Also like very like dark.
Yes, the darkest
the better.
games.
Yeah.
The darkest games taking place in the darkest dungeons.
Yeah. I love that. Can I actually like ask a pretty maybe super random question? How did you think about From the Void, like the name of your agency?
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
From the void.
It did come from the void. No, I have explanations for it, but I don't remember if that was the actual thought process or if there are explanations that I came up with after the fact.
Okay, got it. Something that happened in your ADHD brain.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, some stuff collided in there, and yes. There you go.
Awesome. We love it. I love the logo and everything. It's really cool and very unique too. So that's why I'm asking.
Well, there you go. There isn't a real explanation.
Okay. Well, it's unique and nice. That's enough, I guess.
We have another question about translating, and what you said about achievements is, do you tell developers about each and every deviation you make, or do you just go freely? Maybe if you stumble upon something that is tricky? No?
Well, it depends. What's the context, please? Well, first of all, if the client has specific instructions on the way certain things should be tackled, those instructions get relayed to the team and we stick to them, right? If they say, okay, for this, please stick closely, for this, please retain those names, we, of course, honor that. If we find some things where the way to approach it seems tricky and we're not sure which way to go, we might ask them what they think. But otherwise, we don't generally tell them, like, for this we went a bit loose, for this we went incredibly loose. No, we don't generally completely go off the rails. But we don't necessarily tell them. Like if they ask, we'll explain what we went for and what the thought process was. And also part of it is I'm the one directly in contact with the devs. And I don't look much into what the other languages do. Like we discuss things, we exchange and all that, but I'm not the type of project manager that's gonna micromanage and go into the translation file and look at everything and ask, hey, why did you translate this way? Unless the client asks again. But I won't myself go in there and look at every choice they've made and go, oh, why did you translate it this way? Can you explain? No, I trust my team. I trust that they'll do what they think is best for the quality of the final product. And then we see what happens, right? If the developers have questions, we answer them. If some gamers trademark complain, we see what they had to say. And if it was relevant, which is, it isn't always, but we see.
Right.
A game's text and localization can always be updated, right? It's copy, paste, and replace a file. So you can deliver something and then update it if someone is not quite happy with how you tackled something. It's okay. No one's gonna die.
I see. Interesting. That's your loose approach to things. That might
well, when you say it that way, it sounds unprofessional.
No. That's not what I mean. I meant like it gets a lot of things done without the micromanaging and
well, I think it comes down to, you mentioned it earlier, but I trust my team. I trust that they'll do good work and provide something of quality. So I just deliver that to the client, and then we go from there if there are things that need adjusting. But
that's the most important thing, really. I love that.
We have another starter pack question from Alexander. What's the typical start of a project for your studio? Like, what takes place before you start the actual translation? So it's more like project management at this point, I guess.
Yeah, well, receiving files from a client. Well, first, I guess if it's a new client, getting into contact, telling them our rates, the way we work, blah blah blah, boring stuff. Then they send files. And it's a matter of processing those files. So typically the most common file is a multilingual Excel file, which we process through MemoQ. I'm looking into like scripts in MemoQ to like automate things a bit better, like turn Excel files into XML files. No, wait, XLIF files to process them faster. But at the moment, it's like basically putting the file in MemoQ, setting up the filters and all that, assigning it to every language that's relevant, getting the word count, working out, how much that's going to cost and all that stuff. And then assigning it to people and getting rolling. And, not ask the translators if they're available, just assign it to them and
then see what happens.
And just see what happens.
Potatoes explode. Very funny. Wow.
Yeah. Do you have any main issues that can happen, or do you struggle with files, or maybe with log-kit? You do have log-kits at the beginning?
Sometimes not.
Sometimes.
Right?
Yeah, well, I think so one thing is that project management as a whole and file management specifically is very time consuming. It's much more time consuming than you would expect. Just importing, like setting up files, like opening the file, looking at how it's set up, adjusting anything that needs adjusting so that it's gonna, process correctly, and importing it into MemoQ, setting up the filters, all that stuff. That takes a while. Going to put water in your eyes because MemoQ doesn't have a dark mode, that takes some time.
Yes.
All that stuff. Is Santiago here? Santiago,
I
where's
don't
my
know.
dark mode?
Not sure. But
Santiago, where's my dark mode, Santiago?
we're gonna have a webinar very soon.
Santiago,
You can ask.
get me my dark mode
directly.
I already harassed him every day at GDC, so.
Oh my god.
And I still don't have my dark mode. So forget what I said earlier, harassing doesn't work.
We can have everything, but if we keep pressing Santiago, maybe things will happen.
Everyone should spam Santiago.
No, please don't. Oh my god.
He's a type of. Jessica says that he's at an Argentinian conference at the moment. So.
Oh, what a coward! What a coward! He couldn't show up. He didn't dare to show up. He knew what would happen. He knew what would happen.
He was scared.
In the meantime, I recommend gamer glasses that filter blue light. They're very, very helpful.
I have those, and still, it's.
You still need to dark mode. It's all good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure Santiago will hear this. Yes.
Yeah. There is another question from Sando about maybe team activities. Is asking if the team is playing any multiplayer game for fun at the moment.
No, but that could be nice. That could be a nice idea if we have any time, which isn't a guarantee.
If people also, are not overworked.
Who has time to play?
Who has time to play video games these days? Also, the team is made up of people all around the world. So playing together would mean managing to synchronize time zones, which isn't super easy. But it's not a bad idea. It's something that could be done at some point. That might be nice, but not at the moment. No.
When you're not working every single waking hour of your life, maybe you could host something.
No, but I am not working every single hour of my waking life because I'm trying to not shorten my waking life too much, if you know what I mean. I'm trying not to die in the next 10 years. So I'm trying to force myself to, take my evenings to play with my friends and keep most of my weekends. I'm trying.
Right.
Trying.
Just wanted to ask about weekends. It's like a really, sour spot for a lot of people working.
Yeah. There was a time when I worked. There was a period of time when I worked almost every weekend fully. And I took an emergency vacation around the end of the year because I think it got very close to a burnout. So
occupational burnout is a thing in this industry.
You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
And you gotta give your body and mind the rest it needs, because maybe right now you're crunching and you're getting a lot of work done, but you're tiring yourself even if you're not noticing it right away. And
so true.
Either your body or your mind or both will break at some point. So give yourself the rest you need.
I'm glad you took an emergency exit from that. Might I ask, do you think your work-life balance is now better since you're doing agency work? With From the Void, not with others.
That's difficult to say. It's not better because of From the Void, because there's so much to do. I could be working every hour of every day and every night. There's so much to do. I could be working all the time. It's better because I'm trying to force myself to take breaks.
I see.
So it's more
your personal.
It's more on the side of being conscious of it and trying.
Disciplined.
Having that discipline.
Got it.
Because if I just gave up on that, I'd be working all the time, because there is when you're managing a studio like this, there's always something you could be doing, even if there's nothing pressing. Even if there isn't a project to manage right now, or a translation to be done right now, you could be doing outreach, you could be doing social media, you could be working on improving your workflows, you could be doing any kind of thing.
There's always something.
Answering your accountant's email that's been sitting in your inbox for 2 months, that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's always stuff to do. So yeah.
Well, would you say you have more control also compared to being a freelancer, since you're really running the business, getting the work? Do you say you have like more control on the deadlines and everything than before?
Good question.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's part again of why I did this. Boredom, wanting to improve my working conditions, and as an extension of that, other people's working conditions. The core of it is very selfish. I looked at the industry and I said, fuck that. I don't want to have to deal with that. I'll just circumvent it. And then I just took other people with me and said, hey, you can, share in that. I forgot what I was going to say. But yes, the freedom is part of it. I can't work within a structure that's been imposed on me. I can't.
Got it.
I think that's why I've always been a bad student, and why I ended my internship literally depressed. I knew from the bat, when I was studying translation in university, I knew I was going to be a freelancer. There was no way I would be in-house. No way I would work for someone. Not that that's a bad thing to do, if that's something you're made to do.
Of course, but for
that's
your
perfectly
personal
fine.
life,
but that's not my personality. I can't work within constraints that are imposed on me. I need to do my own thing, and I need that thing to be able to be flexible. So, being at the top, not to sound pretentious, means that I can sort of shape things in the way that I see fit. And you said deadlines. Of course, I don't have full control, because when a client sends something and says, this has to be done for this time, well, I can say, no, stop, just push back the release dates. No, I can't. Darkest Dungeon 2 is coming out of early access on the 8th of May, and there's nothing I can do about that. And we'll just try to have the localization be complete for the 8th of May, and that's what it is.
Sometimes, sorry, are you declining projects like that as well? Like sometimes, if requests are too unrealistic, are you declining them?
It's happened a couple of times where clients have had really requests that were too short, that were over the weekend, stuff like that, and I'm like, no, we can't do that. Either you extend the deadline, or you send it to someone else.
Right.
There have been times, even very recently, where a client has sent something that has a very tight deadline, and where I went, okay, we'll do it, but don't make it a habit, basically. Next deadlines, be sure to set up properly, because there's a thing where you can't treat people too harshly, in the sense where devs and even publishers are often very ignorant of localization. So you gotta take the opportunities to teach them. Say, okay, you're sending me this batch. Look, it's very tight. We'll try to do it, but next time, do it this way, this way, this way. Take that much time. Here's how you should set yourself up to do better, right? And be clear that this shouldn't happen too often. Sometimes you can, like, sometimes stuff happens, right? Game development is very unpredictable. There are a lot of moving parts. So of course, sometimes something unexpected will happen. Sometimes the deadline would be tighter than was expected or planned, and you just have to deal with it, right? To an extent, obviously. But I think what's more important is to make sure that it's not systemic, that it is when something goes wrong or unexpected that bad deadlines happen, rather than just, the way this client works. If the way this client works, I don't want to work with this client.
Exactly.
Unless they change the way they work. So that's what I try to do.
That's nice. Perfect. Yeah, it's good if you stick to your boundaries there.
Yeah.
You gotta have some.
White Santiago has just appeared in the chat. If you want to say something.
No way. Santiago, where is my dark mode, Santiago? Give me my dark mode. I'm dying here. I can't see anymore. I'm going blind.
Wow.
I hope it will hear you. Okay. We have
Indy too wants his dark mode.
Indy is ending that.
Tell Santiago, Indy. Tell Santiago that we want dark mode.
It's so cute. I love it.
Okay, I hope Santiago, you got the message. We trust you to forward it.
To do the right thing. Exactly.
Thank you. Don't do it for me, do it for Indy. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. We have a few questions. I saw a question from Yamano Kitsune about, have you ever considered teaching developers, publishers how to prepare LocKit or to develop with LocKit in mind? Is it a kind of talk you have with them?
Not typically. Usually when they come to us, they already have their LocKit or whatever file they've prepped for localization. If it's not a file that's appropriate to localization, I'll tell them, look, this isn't going to work. You should set it up this way or this way. But typically they come to us with a LocKit already, or a log file like PO files or something like that. JSON files, thankfully, very rarely. Usually Excel multilingual files. But I would like to set up like pre-made like resources, guides for devs and publishers on setting up a good LocKit for localization. And that's that sort of stuff that dev education is something we've started trying to do. Like we did a Twitter thread on advice for
I saw that. That was extremely helpful. Yes.
So we're starting to try to do that stuff. So setting up a guide to what is an ideal LocKit would be one of those things that we could do in the future, that I would like to do. But typically, no, we don't like upfront tell them, what to do. Usually they come to us with a LocKit that's ranges from excellent to terrible, and then we work with that, or we see what we can do.
Right. That's good. I mean, you're already doing a lot of educating, I guess, like you mentioned before, and that's just
don't apologize to Santiago, though. Don't you dare apologize to Santiago. Like come on. How long has MemoQ existed for? Like every software and website under the sun has a dark mode.
I guess that's true.
MemoQ has existed for, I don't even know how long. I don't even want to guess. Anyway, it's MemoQ 10 right now. It's the 10th version of MemoQ, and they still can't turn white.
Dark mode.
They still can't figure out how to turn white into black.
Oh my god. Maybe we should do an AMA version with Santiago later
Yeah,
where you can like
do an AMA with
and
Santiago.
justify for an hour why there is no dark mode.
Do an AMA with a memo queue engineer so that they can explain to us why it's so difficult to turn white black.
Wow. Definitely going to happen in the future. We know it's a thing now.
Not sure Santiago would be happy to join us now, but
I think Santiago has
I hope
disappeared.
so. I hope so. Santiago, please turn your back on us. We still love MemoQ.
Oh, we do. We do.
Yeah, we really do.
yeah. So we're almost running out of time, and we're thinking about a question about the credits, because you kind of are renowned now for crediting the whole team, including the big boss.
Yes.
Including the real master.
Yeah.
So yeah, is it something that you say upfront to everyone you collaborate with, be it translators, developers, like you have a strict policy about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Every new client that I either reach out to or who reaches out to us, I say, and it's part of the pitch as well. It's a selling point too. So there's no reason not to be upfront about it. Because most devs don't have a problem with crediting, really. Like most devs.
Yeah.
Okay.
No matter what the big localization agencies that I'm not allowed to name would tell you, most devs don't have a problem. I mean, look at our credits. My cat is credited. Do you think most devs have issues crediting translators when they're actually crediting my cat? They're fine with crediting.
Indy deserves all the credit, so.
Yeah. There are like fringe cases where a developer will refuse crediting for a wild reason, but those are exceptions. It's happened once. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, so I won't name anyone, but it's happened once where a developer said that they had built their image on being a very small studio, so they didn't want to put too many names in the credits.
Oh, wow. Okay. But then again, they wanted the localization to happen into different languages. So.
Yeah, that's wild. But that's like super rare. Like most devs. I hear that it's more common that AAA publishers will block crediting for whatever reason. Again, I hear. I'm not saying. Because to be perfectly like direct and frank, the only AAA publisher that I've worked with is Sega, as a freelancer, not as from the void, and they credit. If a localization agency that I'm not allowed to name tells you that Sega blocked the credits for Persona 3 and for Remastered, they're lying. Sega credits. But I do hear that it's more common among AAA publishers to be more, shady or annoying about crediting. But in the indie space, the vast majority of developers and publishers don't have an issue with crediting.
Yeah, very good to know.
And I'm upfront about it to everyone. Every translator that I bring into the team, I tell them, okay, here's an NDA for legal reasons, but you will be credited in work on.
Well, we really hope that even in AAA space, more crediting policies will be implemented very soon. We have a lot of endeavors going on, so hopefully this is not going to stay a dream for the future.
The more noise we make, the more chances that those big companies will yield, because what they fear most above everything else is bad PR.
I mean, yes, although bad PR sometimes also is engagement, right? But after all, crediting is a part of best practices.
Yeah.
And if
But,
you follow it, it's just only
but
positive.
can be publicity, but for a big company that's already like popular and everyone knows about it, when you start having like Kotaku articles calling you out because you didn't credit your translators, that's not.
No,
That's
of course, nobody
not
wants that. But yeah, it shouldn't even come to that. Like, I'm a fan of like highlighting positive and really nice improvements in that
Oh, I'm
matter.
not a fan
So
of public shaming.
I'm
For
not
companies,
answering this.
for companies, not for individuals.
Right, okay. Anyway, it's like really good that From the Void is following this practice and also has really strict boundaries about it.
Again, it started very selfishly. Like I was looking at my own career and like, hey, I don't want to work with these agencies and do work and not be able to use it to show my work and advertise myself and grow my career. Fuck that.
Yeah.
So I'll do things in a way where I can guarantee that I'll be able to put the stuff I work on my portfolio. And again, just brought
On the
people
portfolio.
with me.
Yeah.
But it starts with a selfish sentiment, really. But if it helps other people, that's great. And it serves us all individually and as a group to fight for these things, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And
if
thank
you're
you for
a
that.
selfish person, you should also fight for the greater good because the greater good will benefit you in the end. So
absolutely, no, always. Like, yeah, it's just really, really nice to see the recent improvements around crediting too. And
for sure.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, you were definitely a big part of
years.
Yeah. Definitely you were a part of it too. So
Well,
yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, on behalf of everyone, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
I was far from being alone, nor was I the first one. But
no, that's
I'm
true.
glad I was part of it.
Everybody counts. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Indeed.
More voices. Indeed.
Yes.
Do we have time for another question? And it's kind of a Pandora box. I think you can see from the chat.
Yeah, right.
Let's do one and
do you want to get into it?
Let's keep it a little short if that's possible.
So I'm sorry, we may not go over the question about which solutions are better than MemoQ because we also have questions about machine translation.
Oh no, okay.
So people want to hear you about this. And I've seen a very goodly phrased question, which is, what's your take on future of localization during the era of AI? Are you afraid of it can push freelancers and agencies away from the work?
Can we make this our last question then?
Yep, I think it's the last part.
Yeah, because it's going to take a while.
Okay.
I think machine translation and AI can be useful tools to help your workflow, like to get yourself unstuck, like throw a sentence into machine translation to see what it comes up with, and maybe it'll give you an eureka an eureka moment where it makes you better understand the source. You can also ask like ChatGPT, for example, to rephrase something to see what it comes up with, or to explain a sentence that you're not quite getting. It can be a useful tool. My problem with machine translation and AI is the idea of fully integrating it into the translation workflow. Because, well, for a few different reasons. I think it encourages laziness. It encourages relying on a crutch on something that does the work for you, and then you just have to adjust it a little bit. And maybe at the start you're very like, oh, I'll just use it as a starting point, but I'll really polish it. And then 2 years later, you've gotten very lazy and you barely touch it. I think there's also like the fact that it can get things very wrong very easily. especially in game lock, where there's a lot of circumstances where things are very context based. So, and you have complicated strings with, variables, placeholders. You have issues with platform terminology as well. So there's a lot of things to take into account that the machine can't really parse because it's stupid. So you have to go over everything anyway. But so it's very time consuming, right? And implementing it into the fully into the workflow encourages this sort of push towards, always produce more and faster. And I don't like it.
It goes against your principles, basically, right?
And the other reason I don't like machine translation and AI as a full part of the process and a step is that I do believe it's where creativity goes to die. Because, AI and machine translation, at least these setups that we have now, they're aggregators, right? That's what some people don't understand about ChatGPT. Like, it's not a thing that thinks, it's a thing that takes your query and tries to guess what the most common answer to that query would be.
Exactly.
Machine translation is the same way. It takes the source and it asks the question, according to my documentation, what would be the most common translation for this source? So if you've trained it well, it might give you something that's good, but it will always be the lowest common denominator. It will always be the most obvious translation.
Interesting.
And for an area like game localization, where we're working with things that require creativity and a certain level of artistry, you're standardizing the text and getting rid of that angle of injecting your own creativity or trying to be as creative as the original writer was. You're also removing the step where you, again, because that aspect of laziness of the machine already gave you an option. So maybe you're going to polish that option, but you've skipped the step where, because you don't have anything in the target, you can think more freely about any option that might come up, and maybe you'll have a great idea about a joke you can insert in there, or a completely different spin that you might never have if a machine already gave you a very simple, maybe good, but very simple option to go with. And I think, I always say that game translators are writers as well as translators, because even though we work from someone else's work, we need to take into account the experience of the target audience. We're not translating user manuals for vacuum cleaners. We're translating work of art, or even if you don't consider all games as works of art, at the very worst, we're still translating entertainment products. So you have to keep in mind that you're trying to provide your target audience with a certain experience. And you should do your best to provide that experience and that unique sort of touch that an entertainment product should provide. And not just go for the most basic stuff. And maybe even improve. Like, sometimes you can go wild and to provide a translation that's actually better than the source. That's not going to happen if you just feed it to a machine.
That's very true.
And also, at the end of the day, maybe let's say you have a machine translation and AI workflow that's like ironclad. It's super good and it produces very good results and you're like very well set up. It's still not a good idea because, you're going to be very efficient. You're going to produce a lot. And
the quality is different.
The quality, as I said, it probably won't be as creative as it could be. But also maybe the quality is good because you have a very good like engine that's been like very fine-tuned and all that. So maybe the quality is good. But you're teaching your clients that you can produce a lot very quickly, and you have to think about the effect that has on the industry as a whole. Because now you're teaching clients that translators can be very efficient, like unrealistically efficient, because you have this great setup, but not everyone has this great setup. But now you've taught people that they should expect this from other translators, and now you have agencies, pushing for MTPE and clients expecting unreasonable deadlines, and you're just, contributing to, the use of a technology that's already destroying the industry in the way at least it. So you should be careful, even if the way you use it is like produces good results. You should be careful about what that does to the wider industry.
People. Right. That's some really, really good points there. Wow. Like, thank you so much for even asking that. I'm glad we brought up this question.
It's really interesting and important to discuss, I guess.
I love your take on it too, because quality is really important to you as well, and it's like one of your basic principles. And quality also, includes creativity in that sense. A quality translation is creative. And
and you also have to take into account, just enjoyment as a translator. Like I don't like proofreading. Even humans, even good human translators, I don't like proofreading. That's the ADHD brain speaking.
Interesting,
It doesn't engage my brain enough. I need to actually be creating the translation to feel stimulated. So I don't like proofreading to start with. And I'm a very big proponent of this idea that, we spend 90% of our lives working. So I refuse to do a work that I don't enjoy.
Yeah.
So, if I have to spend my entire days proofreading a stupid machine, I'd rather die. So,
okay. Yeah, I mean, realistic opinion, but I get it. I mean, you just want to do something where you feel like, I don't know, you not wasted your precious lifetime on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm gonna be doing this for most of my life, so I want to do something that actually, I get something out of it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much
Good point.
Answering all of that, Marc.
Pleasure.
Okay,
and I think we covered everything. Yeah, we can wrap up. We don't have any more questions, so I hope everyone enjoyed the chat and got interesting information from Marc. I think I put all your details in the description, so if people want to contact you, don't drown him with CVs just yet.
Don't spam Marc yet.
I mean, I set up an email address specifically for job applications, so that it doesn't flood my other email address.
Smart.
So very go smart. Wild.
Yeah.
And I do save them all. I don't answer them individually because that would, sometimes I would take most of my day. I get a lot of emails. I'm sorry, I can't answer them individually, but I do save them, and they're in there. If I'm looking for a profile that fits you, I have your email somewhere, and I will find it.
In the void somewhere, but it's not lost.
It's somewhere in the void, and I will I will reach it and bring it from the void into.
I love that. From the void into existence. Yes.
Yeah,
No, but
exactly.
don't despair if I don't answer your emails. They're in there, and you might get lucky.
Awesome. Yeah.
But also,
Perfect.
I get a lot of emails, and as I said, one of my things is to keep the team small. So
Right. Well, it's
But-
expanding sometime soon. So
Yeah,
let's see
and
what happens.
you're inspiring people. Maybe someone else will like follow your steps. So
Yes.
it would be
people
great.
already have,
Love that.
in we've seen more and more like small studios popping up. I've heard about one called LocQuest, but I don't know if they're good. But I hear they're great.
I hear they're amazing.
Yeah, I hear they're fantastic. You should go with From the Void first, but if From the Void is unavailable, probably ask LocQuest. Okay? But
I
also,
second that.
translator, the term escapes me, but groups like Warlocks, Locosaurus, those guys, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
But people are
Love that.
coming together to try to, circumvent the more annoying and toxic aspects of the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Doing
mean, let's
stuff they
create a
like.
safe, nice space. Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Thank you for being a part of
Yeah.
this movement, I guess.
We
It's
can call
very
it
nice.
that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you so much also for your time, Marc, to answer
thank you.
and respond to all the questions. Thank you, chat, for being here, being very engaging and
thank you, chat.
very on Marc. Thank you, Santiago, for joining. If you're still here, don't forget about the dark mode.
Yeah.
Don't forget, Santiago, because I will not forget.
No, I won't
I will
forget either.
never forget. And
Never.
please, everyone, remember to spam Santiago.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna happen, I guess. Anyway, thank you so much, and thanks for me
thank
too
you so
for
much.
bearing with me and my internet connection today.
It's okay. I'm so sorry you had so much issues. Just one last thing. The AMA will be available on replay just after the live, and you can also find us on the Discord server. You have all the links in the description, so join us and we can continue the conversation over there if you like.
And we'll be yelling on Twitter every day, probably.
Awesome.
Probably.
Let's see each other there. Okay, then gonna see you there.
Yeah,
Bye,
and have a nice
everybody.
weekend, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.